Everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a massive 9-game slate for the NBA. We got a lot of injuries to look at. The slate is kind of interesting, though it is a little bit injury prone today. I expect we're going to have more guys that get ruled out later in the day as well. And also, the pricing is pretty good, though. There is some good value plays as well already, and there's going to be more that will likely open up as the day progresses. So with that said, let's get into the slate itself. We'll first start with the injury report. We've got for the Pelicans, Marshall out, or sorry, questionable. Jones questionable. Zion and Ingram are both out. For the Magic, Wagner is questionable. Okeke is out. For the Knicks, Robinson is out. For the Hawks, Young and Bogdanovich are both questionable. For the Warriors, Kuminga is questionable. Klay Thompson is doubtful, and Jam Green is questionable. For the Cavs, Mitchell is questionable. For the Heat, Robinson, Kane, and Jovic are all out. For the Mavs, Wood is out. For the Clippers, Wall and Kennard are out. For the Spurs, Vassell is out. For the Pacers, Halliburton is out. For the Nuggets, Murray is probable and Jeff Green is questionable. For the Nuggets, Warren is doubtful and Durant is out. For the Jazz, Olynyk is out. For the Lakers, LeBron is questionable. Davis, Walker, and Reeves are all out. And for the Thunder, Pokusevski and JRE are out. And for the Kings, Sabonis is questionable. So with that said, we got some interesting plays available, though, to us. Let's start with our guards here on DraftKings. We're going to start with Jamal Murray. Now, Murray is probable today, so do keep that in mind. But he should play. His price has come down a bunch from its high a few games ago, and I expect him to have a really good opportunity here to 6x or 7x here. At just he needs $3,300 or 33 points fantasy points to 5x today. He's one of my favorite plays on the slate, presuming he ends up playing, especially in a nice plus matchup against Indiana. Then we're looking at Josh Richardson for the Spurs. He has been playing really well with the injuries there to Vassell, and I expect that to continue. He has been pretty consistent in these games. Even though he tends to be a streaky player, he's been really solid lately. I think he's a viable option on the slate. John Morant also looks really good today against the Lakers. He's been playing really well the last few games. His price has also kind of come down a little bit because he hasn't been hitting over 50 fantasy points. But I do feel like this is the type of situation we'll likely do that. Then we'll look at De'Aaron Fox. Now, he has been kind of streaky this season, but he's had some really good games lately, and his price has come down significantly. His price is just too cheap for his potential. Obviously, he does have a little bit of a lower floor than we'd like, but he's been playing well, and so I think he is viable on the slate in a plus matchup against Oklahoma City. Then we'll look at Bruce Brown for Denver against Indiana. He's been playing pretty well. He has a low floor, but he also has a high ceiling, and that's why he's interesting today. His price has come down a lot, which is just too cheap for what he's been doing, and so I expect him to have a really solid opportunity here to have a big game. Then we're going to look at Michael Porter Jr. Now, I didn't love a lot here in the forward positions, but of course some of the guards you can move into small forward as well that I already mentioned, like Bruce Brown and Richardson, I believe. But overall, Porter, he does have a low floor, but he has a really high ceiling, and his price has kind of come down some from where it was, over 6,000. So I think he's in a really good spot here. Nice plus matchup. I do like Denver a lot today in this matchup, so I think he's viable on the slate. Then we'll look at Keegan Murray for Sacramento. If Sabonis continues to be hampered, he's going to have some nice opportunity again. He's been playing more minutes even with Sabonis playing, though, and he's been really consistent lately. He kind of started his season out this way, and then he kind of had some ups and downs, but now he seems like he's getting more consistent, and his minutes are higher. He has double-digit real point potential every single game now, and he's been playing really solid, and this is a nice plus matchup for him. He's probably one of my favorite forwards at this point. Larry Nance also looks interesting for the Pelicans. Now, he hasn't had the minutes since he's been back from injury, so do keep that in mind. But he has some upside here with all the guys out for the Pelicans, especially the big guys. So I expect him to continue to play more minutes and hopefully start getting over this 20 fantasy point hump that he needs to get over here. Julius Randle, I mean, He's just been dominating everybody lately. His price is come down a little bit because he had a couple off games, but for the most part, he's been having really big game after really big game. I expect that to kind of continue in this matchup against Atlanta. And even though Capella's back, Capella's still going to be a minutes restriction, so he should be good to go here. Then we're looking at Evan Mobley for Cleveland. Now, he has been pretty inconsistent, but it's because he's in kind of a minutes or rather a usage timeshare down low. But if Mitchell ends up, or if some of the injuries to Krabs end up being ruled out, he's definitely gonna be a guy that's gonna be a top tier play because he gets more usage when anybody sits out. So I do think he's viable on the slate. Then we're gonna look at our big guys, and we're gonna look at Isaiah Hartenstein. Now we do want to make sure that he ends up starting with Mitchell Robinson out, and so do keep track for that. But if he does start, then he is a viable option on the slate. He had some starts earlier this year where he had really good games. He's literally minimum priced here on DraftKings, so he definitely has viability if he ends up starting. Jonas Valanciunas also looks really interesting today in an interesting matchup against Orlando. He's got some upside in this matchup. He obviously doesn't always play a full complement of minutes, but with all the guys out for the Pelicans, he's going to have upside here. And I like matchups like this. He actually gets more minutes in this type of matchup because the Magic have multiple big guys to throw at him. They don't play a small lineup like some teams do, and he tends to get more minutes in those type of games. So he definitely has some nice upside in that situation. And then finally, we're going to look at the Joker, who's just been playing extremely well. He has a nice plus matchup with Indiana. Now the risk here is that it becomes a blowout, and which could happen definitely, and then he doesn't play as many minutes. But overall, he has triple-double potential. He's gotten 3 triple-doubles in a row, 4 in the last 5 games. I mean, I think it's actually more than that, but whatever it is, he's just been playing extremely good. I expect that to continue, especially in this easier matchup for himself. So let's go ahead and get over here to FanDuel, and we're going to start with Trey Jones over here. Now, his price is a little bit cheaper here, and he's been playing really solid. For the most part, he has some nice upside. His floor isn't my favorite, but he is a viable on the slate for the Spurs, where they have some injury situations. And, of course, some of the Clippers aren't playing as well, so that should give him some opportunity as well. For the Kings, I have Fox here. Fox is a little bit underpriced here on FanDuel for his potential. He's underpriced on both sites. He's been playing pretty solid for the most part. He's had a couple off games, but he's got a nice matchup here against Oklahoma City. John Morant also looks really interesting today against the Lakers. The Lakers can't stop anybody, and he's been playing pretty well. He hasn't been playing as many minutes the last few games. He did have a little bit of an injury a couple games ago, so it might be just hampering him a little bit still. His price is still pretty good, though, and I expect him to have a big game here against the Lakers. Then we'll look at Kyrie. Now, Kyrie has been up and down since Durant got hurt, and he's not played a game. But last game, he finally broke out, had a 65 fantasy point game. I expect him to get back on track and do that more and more in the scoring department and getting more assists and stuff like that. So, plus he gets steals and stuff which really benefits him on fantasy as well. His price is pretty fair here for what he can do. Then we'll look at Keldon Johnson for the Spurs. Now, I didn't really love a lot of forwards here on FanDuel or DraftKings for that matter, but he does look viable here. He's been up and down, but he's getting more minutes as a result of the injuries and stuff, and he's really their top scorer, so he has the most opportunity to have big games, and it is a decent matchup against the Clippers, who are ruling when it comes to guys sitting out. Though, I would say that if Paul George and Kawhi Leonard both play, that I probably won't use Keldon, but he is viable based on his price and stuff like that currently, but we don't know what they're going to do with those guys until later today. Then we'll look at Wendell Carter Jr., who's had some really good games. He's had a couple down games, but he's been playing pretty solid. Now, the risk with the Magic is they have a logjam at the forward center position, but he does tend to play a lot of minutes, and I think he's viable on the slate, has double-double potential as well. I am going to mention Isaiah Hartenstein here. However, I don't love him at this price point on FanDuel because obviously it's really dependent on him starting and playing a significant amount of minutes, and it's been quite a while since he's done that. He does have upside, though, at this price, even so if he ends up starting, so do keep that in mind. And then Julius Randle, his price has come down under 10,000, which is nice bonus here. He has some good upside for this matchup and this situation. I do think he's in a good spot. So I do think he's somebody to consider. Then we'll look at the Joker for Denver. He has played extremely well, having lots of triple doubles. I expect that to continue in this matchup, which really doesn't have anybody that can stop him. Then we'll look at Nick Claxton for Brooklyn. With the injuries to Durant, he's been playing really good, and his fantasy points per game have risen up some. His price has come up a little bit, but he's still viable on the slate, and I think he's a great option at the center position. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Have a nice day, guys.